Namaste, friends.
Namaste.
Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Alok Pandey. He is a MBBS and MD in psychiatry, and he has served 20 years in Indian Air Force. And now he is presently working in Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Pondicherry. So today our subject is suicide. So nowadays it is very rapidly growing, and it's not only in male or female, in every gender. So we will discuss with Dr. Alok Pandey, and we will try to understand why this happens and what are the consequences after this. Namaste.
Namaste, Narayan.
First, I want to know that why anyone do suicide.
Okay. There are several levels when we look at cause and effect. There are several levels at which we can understand it. So, the most common is, one of them is when people go through phases of transition. So, they live in a certain way, suddenly everything is upset, and there is a big change, and then suicide becomes very high. For example, during adolescence. So, in adolescence, people are transiting from childhood to a new way of life, and it can be very unsettling. Then again, old age. So, all periods of transition are very stressful, and the transition may be a good transition also, because you have to adjust to a new way of life. So, all these are critical moments. They are moments which can be taken as crisis, and there are two ways through which people navigate in crisis. One is they collapse, they don't know how to go through it, or second, they grow through it. So the whole idea of suicide intervention is not just helping them come out of that state, but importantly to teach them that this crisis is an opportunity to evolve and grow. That's why crisis comes. This is one part. But psychologically and sociologically, suicide has been divided into several categories. One of them is fatalistic suicide, where you feel that now I am helpless, hopeless, fate has chosen to inflict pain and injury on me, and there is no way out. So ultimately, suicide is a cry in a state of despair. And it is characterized by two things. As psychiatrists, we look for these two things along with depression. Depression is the number one cause. We look for hopelessness and helplessness. If these two are there, then the risk is very high. And another kind of suicide is anomic suicide, where anomy can be good or bad. Anomy is particularly in today's time. You are in a place, you are not identified with anything, anybody. There are children who go through that. They feel lonely, they feel in a house as a child, they have grown up, but suddenly they feel we no more belong here. And in this anomic suicide, there is also a kind of phase when people go through a existential crisis. They are exploring. See, till adolescent, you are your mama's or papa's child, often a favorite child. But when you enter into adolescence, nature wants you to discover yourself, and you don't know. That time it can be very unnerving. So anomic suicide is when you feel lonely, alone, and this lonely alone is not just physical, but psychological. So loneliness is a very big problem in today's times, especially because the joint family in India, which was a big buffer, has broken down. And along with joint family breaking down, there is also society has become, I must say, a bit very self-centered. Mm-hmm. Also because everybody is too busy. And because of that, they are in the race and everybody is wanting to outdo somebody else. So all this has brought the stress of loneliness. So this is another cause. Third cause is ego, what is called as egoistic suicide, not the spiritual ego. But in egoistic suicide, you had a name, you had a place in society. Suddenly, for various reasons, either supposing you are a big businessman, you suffer heavy losses, or you are in some good position and you lose it, then there is a high risk of suicide. And fourth is altruistic suicide. Altruistic suicide is like Japanese committing harakiri. That's not technically, though we include it in suicide, but I must add something just in a couple of minutes. There are a lot of phenomena which look like suicide, but I would not like to include it in suicide. In Western literature, people go by the act. So if you have killed yourself, it's suicide. But in Indian literature, we don't look at it like that. Indian thought looks at the motive. For instance, some of the ancient yogis, they would, when they knew the time has come to depart, they would undertake ikshamrityu. Sometimes they would do prayopavasana where they will not eat for days. Or Lord Rama walking into Saryu. Now these are not suicide. They are when you know your time has come, because this kind of knowledge existed, deliberately, willfully you are entering into that state. What about Abhimanyu? It's not suicide. Technically he knows he is going to die. I mean, he of course knew. He chooses not to turn back. There are a lot of Kshatriya types even now in war. So we must distinguish between, why I'm saying this is important. Because though technically these are all acts of self-harm, willful self-harm, that's how suicide is defined. But the consequences are very different spiritually and even materially. So this is the broad spectrum, but number one cause is of course depression and another psychiatric illness which is known as schizophrenia. But most common is depression in terms of illness. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, whoever they do this suicide, so whatever the mental state before they commit suicide, so after they commit this suicide, does it fulfill their motives? Why means why they take this step? So they fulfill this.
There are two kinds of motives people have in mind. Unfortunately, in a very fast track, instant gratification, which is one of the problems of today's times. We don't know how to embrace life, how to accept life, how to take the challenge. We are in a fast lane. So, in that age of instant gratification, the motives are also instantaneous. What is the instant motive? I am feeling depressed, I am feeling lonely, let me just come out of it. It's because there is a lack of spiritual education in our curriculum. So as a result, what happens is that people just want instant gratification. When that is not there, they commit suicide. Very evidently, this is not only sad and it is cowardly act. From the spiritual perspective, it is regarded as the most heinous act. Okay. Why it is regarded as the most heinous act? Just imagine in Isha Upanishad, which is just one of the shortest Upanishad with just 18 verses. It has one sloka dedicated to that out of 18. So it says that, those who asurya nam te loka pretya bhigachanti chat manohana, those who are slayer of their self, they go into dark sunless world. And that is where it comes, the motive is important. You want to escape from life, challenges of life, pain of life. You cannot escape by this route, that is for sure. Now, again, as I said, in Indian thought, there are many beautiful things. One of them is rebirth. So, rebirth can work both ways. One of them is that maybe if I give up life in this life, my problems, I'll come back and start in a nice way. In the Western thought, there is no idea of rebirth, but again it works both ways. One of them is that, okay, once I get rid of the problem. But in Indian thought, what rebirth means is that if you have left something unfinished, you have to face it. Because nature is not mechanical, it is a conscious force. So you have a challenge of life, you say, I don't want to take it. Nature will push you harder and harder until you take the bull by the horns, when it will become more and more difficult. So those who commit suicide, firstly because the state of departure is very important in Indian thought. So if you are in a dark state, when you are full of depression and sense of self-harm, concentrated upon the small little things of life, then you gravitate into those worlds the moment you leave the body. By law of attraction, there are many worlds. You will be drawn towards that. And when you go into those worlds, as the Upanishad says, sunless world, dark world, because you are in a dark state, full of negativity, full of self-depreciation. So there are worlds from where these things are projected. We can talk about it a little later. What does it mean? And nature does not let go of you, because nature knows that the soul never dies anyway. So it will come back with the challenge under much more serious and difficult circumstances. So whoever believes that this is the end, no, it's a much more difficult beginning that we are doing for ourselves. Second, you must have heard that it is considered as a sin. Now in Indian thought there is no conception of sin. But certainly imagine you have certain work to do, you have certain responsibility towards people, towards yourself, towards people, towards those who love you, whom you love, and towards society. Now what happens when you cut all these threads abruptly? It's not just about you. There are people who depend upon you. You have just not bothered about them. You're like a person who just doesn't care about anybody except oneself. That's why it is said from the spiritual point of view, depression and suicide especially are states of acute and extreme selfishness. See, what are the thoughts in depression? Nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, nobody understands me. Why? I am the center. I can love someone, I can understand someone, I can give my love to people. There are so many deprived of love, but instead I want for myself. So it is a state of egoism, and what it does, it makes us small and narrow, like in a hole. And the smaller, narrower we become, the more we suffer. This is the truth of life. You will see when people are in extremely agitated state, they are thinking only about themselves, their gain, their loss. And whereas those who are generous hearted, who are wide hearted, who know how to forgive, who know how to understand that people have their own difficulties, who know how to accept life, embrace life, take the challenge of life, they go through life beautifully. So it's a question of education, heredity. People in their homes, they see certain behaviors, extreme anger when they face, that's why childhood trauma, anger. Why? Because suicide is anger turned towards oneself and others. You're very angry with someone. How would you like to punish? By taking this extreme act, because somebody will feel guilty. How long? After some time, people will forget. So it doesn't serve. And then it is also anger towards yourself, anger towards God. And anger is one of the number one destructive forces in the world. So all this is very unfortunate, and I feel that we talk about suicide prevention, suicide cells, but you have to tackle this problem. It is about attitudes in life which should go right as a child is being grown up. Most important to take all the challenges of life and grow through it. That's what life is about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So basically means whoever commit this suicide, so initially they thought that after the suicide, whatever the pain he is suffering or she is suffering, so they will relieve from this pain. But after committing this, they will not relieve from this.
This is one. Unfortunately, most of the time people don't think.
Mm-hmm.
What happens, I'll tell you how the whole process works. As long as you can think, especially discern, you will never do this.
Mm-hmm.
So there are forces which will first steal that. So your whole mind, your buddhi is turning upside down. So thinking itself is taken hold of by certain forces of nature. We'll talk about it a little later. So you can't think properly, logically, in a correct way. Things become exaggerated. Small problem. For instance, adolescence, people have a heartbreak. They feel rejected and they feel this is the end of life. If they waited another 5 years, they would have said, oh, I was so foolish. Isn't it? They would laugh at it. Just as you are smiling now and I am smiling now. But during that time, it is the end of the world. If they failed, they would think, finished, now I cannot do anything. But If you wait, you discover that, well, I am meant for something else. There are another door opens. So they cannot think properly. But at the same time, while they are wanting to commit suicide, it is said, and this is so true, that they are basically still seeking help. Somehow they still expect somebody will stop me, somebody will listen, somebody will understand. And this suicide prevention, or this is one of the crucial things why you have helplines. What do helplines do? So that somebody you can call, you feel extremely suicidal and you call somebody. All that you require is a patient hearing. You can talk a person out of suicide, this is true. But escape, particularly you will see in old age when people are suffering from chronic pain or disease. That time again suicide tends to peak. They feel we are at the end of our life, and so old people also need love and affection to make them feel wanted, loved, cared, even if their bodies are not working well. That is another problem nowadays that we face. So we put parents in old age homes, or even if they are there, we don't understand that just they've grown old physically, they have diseases, but their heart is still there, no? They need that love, support, and they also need sometimes to listen. They also have their memories. So it's important to give people a listening ear, and that applies to the whole society. We are all responsible for one man's suicide because somebody didn't give a ear to listen. Sometimes, I have seen so many patients as a psychiatrist, they give subtle hints. I'll tell you one story about a girl. She was in 12th standard, exams crisis. Nowadays, fortunately, in the new education policy, exam system has been taken away. It's a very good thing. Except, I think, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Also, there is a stress on developing your skills rather than just standard formula of 12th standard grades, etc. Also, avenues and opportunities have opened. So, this girl, when she was in 12th standard, suddenly asked her sister one day, Didi, elder sister was doing graduation, how much weight do you think this fan can take? She was surprised. She randomly said something. Then she just mentioned it passingly to the mother. Mother scolded the child. What is this? You are thinking all this? Focus on your studies. Next day she committed suicide by hanging. So you see, the child was seeking help. Why would she ask this question? They give lot of indications. We have to pick up. As a psychiatrist, we are trained to pick up. Still mistakes happen. Sudden change of behavior. Sometimes people write a last note. Sometimes suddenly they are as if bidding farewell. Very many, I have seen a whole variety. One patient coming to a doctor and saying, okay, ठीक है, देखते हैं. If we meet, when we meet. Now you see, these are very, very subtle hints. One has to pick up the distress in people. So these are the indicators. Obviously, there is no escape from this creation. That's a big story. I don't want to get into it. But if you want to find escape route of life, then escape from weakness, escape from ego, and face life. This is the way creation is made, that you have to face challenges and grow. Every challenge and crisis is an opportunity. But that very few understand. Usually the will is very weak. Then after stealing away the right thought, turning the thought, these forces steal your will. Steal, S-T-E-L. I wish they could S-T-E-E-L. They steal, चोरी कर लेते हैं. तो will जो होती है ना, वो ऐसा लगता है, even if a problem is not that big, it appears insurmountable. Why? Because these forces are influencing first the thought. So thoughts are exaggerating the dark side of life. Everybody has some. But it's like you are seeing only the dark spot. You remember sometimes your attention goes constantly on the dark spot. Then this rob your will. So will becomes perverted. It keeps working in the direction of let's finish it. Whereas the will could take it that okay, whatever be the difficulty, I'll take the challenge. Then they rob faith. And last thing that they rob is hope. That's why hopelessness and helplessness. So the question is, who robs? Why I am using this word? Very clearly, if you see a person and this change of behavior and this decline through depression or this suicidal impulse, finally, one can see that there are forces which take hold of our mind and heart and life and even physical body, compel us to do things. When people come out, they themselves wonder. Sometimes I have seen people say during that state, it's not me, but I can't help it, I am possessed. They see dreams. So I do completely believe, apart from being into the spiritual path and knowing about these things, but I would say even logically, if a scientist looks at the phenomena very impersonally, he will be compelled to conclude that there are forces beyond our reckoning which compel us to do things, compel us to think in a certain way, and feel in a certain way, and will in a certain way, and push us on the edge. And this is very important for interventions. Because right now we are only thinking as biological heredity and chemical mechanisms, but we are not thinking of the occult dimension of illness, especially suicide. It is an attack by the hostile forces, as the Vedic rishis would say.
Yeah, and sometimes also the person who want to suicide, I have seen that they are also not aware of that, their mindset, and we can say the person suffering from depression, they himself also don't know that he is suffering from depression. So like that also it can be.
Yes, there are two things here. One is unconsciousness, where they don't know what they are going. They're feeling restless, agitated, generally unhappy, not knowing. But there is also a state where it is not because of depression, where like schizophrenia, what we call. Again, I don't like to label people with names. But what to people is schizophrenia, to me is a very clear influence and sometimes actual possession by these forces. So they don't know. Definitely they are not depressed and they are fine one moment and next moment they get an impulse. But that is where suicide is impulsive. So suicides which are impulsive, they are generally because one is under fully possessed by these things which are schizophrenia, for instance. And premeditated, well thought suicides are generally depression. Early morning, that's the most dangerous time of the day. Why? Because night is the time when these forces are very active. Night before dawn. So most suicides, depression becomes much worse at that point of time. People feel very lonely, alone, and that's when the risk is very high.
So why this misconception is there among us in human society, like suicide is the solution of all problems?
Lack of education. See, the thing is that what do we teach children in school? We teach them memory, we teach them how to succeed, we teach them how to eventually find a good job. What is the emphasis of parents and teachers? Job. And why job? Money. Not as a job as an expression of who you are. Job, money, outer success, ambition. Even parents. They feel very proud when they say, oh, my child got 95% or I don't know now probably 99%, I don't know. So when you do like that, you are feeling very proud today. But what you have done, you have put the child unwittingly in a wrong track. And other way also, when children don't do well, they feel very hesitant even to, talk about or introduce. So parents, number one, because they are stress on only vital success, material enjoyments, money, good looks, all things which are outer. So the more we live life outwardly, the more we'll think problem is outward, solution is outward, and we take these steps. And it's because of lack of education, lot of unconsciousness, parents, teachers, all of them.
Yeah, here also I want to add one incident. Like in school time, I had a junior, 1 or 2 year junior. He's like a younger brother to me. So he completed 10th with good marks, and he has a environment of very good family. And after that he go for plus 2 science. Then after plus 2 also he cleared with a good number. Then he joined in BTech. But in BTech, in first year, he back with one subject. And after that, he committed suicide.
Exactly. This is one extreme. I'll tell you another extreme. This is still okay. I know of a person who was in the fast track lane always. He became a major general in as a doctor, major general in the army. Now that's a very high rank. Only one more rank is there next, which is lieutenant general. As far as the army is concerned, doctor is concerned, he missed it and he jumped from the building and committed suicide. Now you take, because you have got so used to this fast track life, which is so stressful. You are competing always with somebody. I have seen people, cardiologists, coming to me and saying, I have a problem. What is the problem? I want to, whenever I see a car, I want to go past it. So I said, it's okay. Go past it. No, then I see another car, I want to go past another. Another instance of a CEO of a company who had come because he was going through this stress, depression, all that. So his counselor suggested you take a break, which was a good thing, because a break, breaks your formations and it's a good thing. But what he did was he booked in one of those clubs where naturally rich man, and next day he just said, okay, let's have a game of tennis with somebody, and he lost the game. He developed stress because on a holiday he played tennis and he lost the game. So it's a values. So we need to, my one suggestion is for those who probably, and I have given this suggestion everywhere, in every school, at school level, introduce life skills. Life skills is not about job. It's about attitudes. How do you face life? How do you take the challenge? Nobody teaches children. I have given this suggestion to whatever school I know. So that children, when they grow up, we have counselor, but that's a different thing altogether. We have a breakdown, you discuss with the counselor. It's the task of the school, when children, how to face life, what is the place of money, what is relationship, how to deal with these when you go out into the world with different challenges, what is ambition and what is excellence. They don't know the difference between the two. What truly is success. So there is no stress on life's values. You can use the word life values, doesn't matter. It should be compulsory part of education system. Parents, education begins at home, but unfortunately now you have this issue of double, both parents earning, which is okay. I mean, life is, each one have to accept, but it creates a problem because children, they don't have anyone to share their issues with. That's why sometimes grandparents, so we are going back to the old system. So nowadays you will see again people wanting the grandparents, joint family. With all its demerits, it has some very good merits. Always there was somebody. And grandparenting was a very big buffer. When children had a problem, parents were not there, either they were too stressed, they said something, children ran to the grandparent. And grandparent will scold invariably, the parents say, you were like this, and the child feels comforted. It's a very simple thing. Now, there is nothing. Only parents and the child. And if the parents are busy, too busy, they also get stressed, understandably. Mm-hmm. So child doesn't know whom to discuss. Where will the child go? Child, 10-year-old, 15-year-old, which friend? And friends don't know all these things. They are going through challenges. At that time, grandparenting. So I personally do feel that, it was a very good thing.
So in India, that is good. Like we have a family tree and we live with our grandparents also. But what will you say for Western context?
They have spoiled. All this India has been spoiled by this thought. All this idea of, express your anger, you are a free person, do this. I keep telling people, Indian civilization is based on Sanyama. You express, but there is Sanyam. See, when people use 4-letter word, that's my life, my word, my speech, whatever I do. Until I actually go and hit somebody, we are teaching them aggression, which is McDonald's, Swiggy, sorry to say, but instant food. This is not a good way of life. But where has it come from? It's imported from the West. There are good things in the West, without a doubt. But we have imported the wrong things. Just as when they come, they see our difficult side, which we also have. So definitely, in the Western world, they are turning, they are beginning to realize. It still takes time. They have to evolve in their own way. But definitely, one should take a leaf or two from Indian thought, and this social sense of society, community building. Many of the festivals, people often say India has too many festivals. Festivals were such a good cushion. No, together celebration, Holi, Diwali, and God knows every puja. We don't realize it has many other good effects. One of them is that you felt supported by the group life. Even if somebody said that, oh, you didn't do well, somebody, auntie will say, "Arey, koi baat nahi hai." So you had that support, commune system, community living. So they should also, I think, instead of us taking, we should send some good ideas. Yeah.
So I have seen a statistic like age compared to male suicide is more. So why this happens?
Females try more, they speak more, but they commit less. So there are a whole lot of theories about it. One of them is that a female, when she says suicide, she is trying to draw attention. Please don't take it like that. Because we were taught this as while in our MD, that yes, it's true that out of 10, 9 times it's to draw attention, some cuts and all. You don't know which one is going to be the actual act. So don't take it lightly. Even if she wants attention, what's wrong with giving a little attention? I just don't understand this idea. She may want attention, it's okay. For various reasons, they may have a need for affection because women live in the heart. So I see nothing wrong in giving that extra affection and love. They are also doing so much. So this is where females, very often in female, it is a call for attention. Okay, and second, because by and large their nature is rather soft till now. Okay, what's going to happen after 100 years with all these rise of machines, I don't know. So what happens is that they are less likely to use extreme methods. So things like drugs is overdose is so now it's not easy also. You can't take these sleeping pills and all without prescription. One of the ways it helps is preventing these things. And men usually use very violent methods. Hanging, jumping from a floor. So because they are soft-natured women, feminine. So therefore you'll see that they may express, but doing the act, it's a violent deed. So that violence, also there are several things, it's acceptable in society for a woman to cry. So when a woman cries, it's understandable that she cries, but this is a great release. Men are not supposed to cry. Unfortunately, men cry. They have the same feeling. They're the same fellows. But you must have seen, men will cry all alone or, But a lady, that's how society has developed, Not talking of good or bad part of it, but crying relieves you. They also can express things in an angry way. But for men to show their emotions is considered as a sign of weakness. So many men you will see, they don't show emotions easily, including love, affection. But women generally express. If they're angry, they express. They shout. Which is good, at least they have released that, Men would be angry, but they will end up doing some silly act like, hitting their head or going out and drinking, which makes it much worse. Because drinks aggravate their whatever mood you are in, drinking is going to make it much worse. Equally, because of that extreme violence, they can resort to these number of options they have. So yes, women, it's more common. Speaking of statistics, so there is a very nondescript country where suicides are minimum. Cyprus. Heard about it? Greece also. But India, fortunately, is not ranking among the topmost suicide country. I think it is 48th or something like that. It's not very high. But if you compare the states, then Sikkim and Tamil Nadu, very high. Kerala, and unfortunately, Union Territory of Pondicherry. Delhi is the highest, and Pondicherry is next. Union Territories, very high. And there are several theories about it, but let's not go into speculations. I have my own reasoning about it, but anyways, quite high. Okay, Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry. So, but it proves one thing, that it's not, there is something which is missing. Kerala has high literacy, but big alcohol problem. So when we try to say literacy rates, employment, unemployment doesn't apply. So there is something which is missed. That's why I keep saying it's about interwoven about our attitude, the way we deal with life, the way we have grown up. All this makes a big difference. So statistics are yes, interesting.
So, is there any age group like when this impulse comes
Yeah,
very frequently?
Adolescent, take it. Adolescence is the impulsive age. Why? Because in childhood, you are governed by parents, and you believe my papa, my mama are the best. And all that you got to do, listen to them. Sometimes you will cry, but very soon you have that trust. But adolescence is a time when nature breaks that. Why? Because it wants you to individualize. Very difficult period. And you are neither, as that ad used to come, too old to be something and too young to be this. And when you are transiting, biological changes are coming. I know people get very upset, and it's understandable. Women especially. And with periods coming and very obvious physical changes. Men also. But still. So parents during that time, their focus is not all this. Their focus is studies. So that adds to the stress. Suddenly they are in that race that they have to prove themselves. When they were growing up as child, they didn't have to prove themselves. But suddenly they are in that race. So adolescence is then of course love affairs, rejections, which are bound to happen. I don't know I know very few love stories which started in adolescence and continued till old age. Some are there, some beautiful stories. But most of the time it doesn't work out for various reasons. You evolve, you grow, you may take a different direction in life, somebody else takes different direction. Many things may happen when parents get involved. So this is a time when your reasoning is developing slowly. That's why it is said that adolescence, now accidents also very high in adolescence. Why? Because your brain is wired in this way that you end up taking risks. You're taking the scooter, it's a risk not only to yourself, somebody else. But slowly through that learning, brain starts getting hardwired into prudence. So rashness changes into prudence. And logic begins to develop. Logic is there right from childhood, but truly reason, discerning reason begins to start. Nowadays puberty comes much earlier. But 12, 13 grows, develop discernment, and nobody is there to train. So reason is, reason controlling the vital impulse is what makes a man. That's what maturity is about. Mature human being is somebody whose reason can take care of his impulses and vital desires and emotions, does not crush it, but allows it expression in a very decent way. Okay? But there is a period when reason is not the boss. Boss is the vital impulse. Because reason is a new entrant. Vital is there. Child throwing tantrum, all this. It's a vital. So mind has not come. Soul is sitting behind somewhere. God knows. So right now, whatever reason comes is at the mercy of the vital animal, which makes it very dangerous. So that is an age when till particularly, let us say, 13 to 15, 18, societal pressures, exams, many rapid changes, all challenges. 13 to 18 is a very, 12 to 18, let's say, is a big period. And then, of course, another hump is 18 to 25. Once you grow into a mature adult, you find your own grounding in life, again it wanes off. Then again, midlife crisis. But people mostly by then are, sort of mature enough. And of course, then I laugh at the word maturity, but anyway. So, but at old age, because people define it very differently. So, then again, old age when they feel left off. especially when they have done well in life, they have cared for their children, and they have a place. Now nobody comes, nobody is bothered, nobody asks. So that is a time when suicide. But old people cannot execute easily because it takes lot of effort. So
So, at the time of this thought came, so we know that our thought is clouded. So, at that time, what he or she can do to help himself or herself at best?
very difficult because thought is clouded. That's why people around. That's why life has that parasparta. So it is people around. That's where friends and family have to pick up those cues. But if somebody has right from childhood learned that there is something else which you can access, a key which you can open, through which you can get help, then it gets inbuilt into the system. And I'll tell you one such thing. You'll be surprised. It's a gift to human beings. But again, this thought coming all the way from the so-called liberal education, which has robbed us of many wonders, postmodernism, also modernism, modernist thought, postmodern thought, is that it has robbed us of the spirit of divine and sacredness and things, and robbed us of the capacity to pray. I have grown up in that culture of prayer. So we had this that, okay, if you are in distress, what do? भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुना, नाशे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत वीरा. We don't realize the value. I mean, leaving aside that actually coming in contact with Hanuman, these were natural things. We grew up with the Gita, parents telling us, that practice moderation, too much anger is not good. These values are imparted at home. Gita should be a household thing, and I have been an advocate. I have spoken in national education seminars. Make Gita compulsory in school. It's not a religious scripture. It will help human beings become better. The Gita doesn't say you have to believe in this or that God. You can believe in Allah, you can believe in Christ, you can believe in nobody or somebody. It doesn't matter. But to learn how to live, Gita is the most practical and wonderful book. So, those of us who have grown up, we know that there is something greater and higher. So, when we go through a crisis, what do? We instinctively pray. And we have the faith that magic will happen. Magic happens. How? Magic is not only about things being removed from the outer. That may not change. But magic happens inside. It gives you strength to go through it. That is the miracle. And this is such a simple thing. Human beings are given this gift. They can pray. I'll tell you one small instance of a whole family which had come wanting to commit suicide. The boy had progressive muscular dystrophy because, he was... Progressive muscular dystrophy is a condition where slowly your muscles will get weaker and weaker. One day they'll become so weak that you can't even eat, you can't speak, and eventually you die. There's no treatment for it. Now they are doing all kinds of trying out things. And because of this, the parents wanted to commit suicide. So all of them came to me to meet me, and I asked the boy, I said, to the parents I asked them, supposing this was not your child, but your brother's child, I asked the father, and something had happened to the brother, say lost in an accident, and you had to bring up this child, would you feel the same degree of distress? He suddenly had an awakening. He said, no. I said, rather, won't you feel the sense of joy and satisfaction that you are bringing up your brother's child and fulfilling your deepest duty? He said, yes. I said, look at it like this. You are a trustee, the divine's child. Their life changed instantly. But this boy was wonderful. So I asked him why you want to. He can't commit because he's already chair bound. 12, 13, 14-year-old boy. I asked, okay, what makes you depressed? He said, because I can't do the things children my age do. So I asked, what are the things you cannot do? I cannot climb the trees. I cannot play cricket. I cannot ride cycle. These were the 3 things he told me. I said, and what are the things that you can do? So he thought for a while. Then he says, I can think. Good. Then he says, I can pray. On his own. He is coming out with this. And I said, and third thing, because I asked for 3 things. After some thought, he says, I can meditate. I said, do you think you can do them better because you're not distracted by these things? He said, yes. I said, so we'll start doing this. So whenever I would meet in sessions, I would develop this part. What have you thought? So I told the parents, whatever he speaks, because he can't write now, his hands are becoming weak. You write. He started writing some kind of a poetry. He felt so much that, there is a purpose for which I'm living. See, writing a poetry, thinking, these are purposes which will outlast a whole lifetime. I said, make him read certain things. You can read aloud. He could read, of course. Holding a book was different. So slowly, then he started taking interest in watching cricket. So basically, to give a purpose, a meaning, a deeper prayer, meditation, all this is lost. All this is coming from the other side of the globe. This idea that, there is nothing like that, this kind of thought which, I don't want to use political ideologies, but I can tell you this kind of leftist thought can destroy civilization. It is so dangerous. It promises us roti kapada makan, but it takes away from us our heart and soul. It is typically the case of selling your birthright for a pot of porridge. Esau and Jacob's story in the Bible. Because it focuses, then violence. Snatch it. Revolution comes by the barrel of a gun. What kind of a weak thought it is? You see somebody doing well, okay, I agree. Put in double effort, prove, take the challenge and do it. How did Arjuna do what he did? He was literally outcast, all of them. How they rose and ultimately with his practice, sustained effort. That's what life should be. So it's again we go back to the same thing, education, education, education.
Yeah.
Of course, we use medicines as psychiatrists, all that is a different domain altogether.
So this should be my last question maybe. What happens when one commits suicide? What happens after the death?
So again, to the material scientist, to a typical biological based psychiatrist, nothing happens, you die. So I find it so silly. Then what are you intervening about? You let him go freely. So obviously that is an absurd thought. It takes away the whole meaning and sense of life. So obviously, but spiritual thought has a lot of things to offer about it. Whatever the Gita says that, and it is known in mystic literature, whatever is your state of thought at the time of death, you enter into those worlds. By you, I mean the soul enters into those worlds, no more in the physical sheath, but in the vital sheath, emotional sheath, then the mental sheath, but mental sheath comes later. So if you are extremely agitated, depressed, full of hate, anger, spite, full of ill will towards others, this person did this to me, this person did that. You have not been able to forgive, you have not been able to clear your heart. So you will go down toward these dark states. Forget about heaven, hell. But there are in this world several layers. This world is not a single material reality, but many tired. It's a multiverse, to use a modern language. And it is logical. If you look at creation from the heights to the base, or look at from the base, there would be many steps, stages. But I am not going into this whole thing about many worlds, but there are many worlds, say the Upanishads and the Vedas. So you enter into the dark worlds, and you can get badly trapped there because they are being so. You are jealous now, it'll prick you, and you don't know how to escape. When you are living in the body is such a protection. You can ask help. But when you are away, whom will you ask? Whose number do you have? Who is, you are surrounded by those beings. Who can, like people who were brainwashed and went to fight with the ISIS. As long as they were here, people didn't bother. They should have taken care that my child is taking to an ideology which is extreme, which is so dangerous. You can see it all over, bombs and killing and all this is so dangerous. But that time nobody, then when you go there was a whole movie based on that. I forget the name. Huh? No, where this lady has gone to Afghanistan and then she finally comes back.
Kerala story?
Kerala story. And it is so true. You are caught there and you are stuck there. Then you can't ask help because you won't find that world is full of these beings. So this is why it's so important, whatever is your state. So that's why it is said that in our culture, that the state during death is so important. So you should surround people with beautiful thoughts. We used to play the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, or Gita particularly when people are departing. Now the thing is, if somebody has done it, okay, because you can get logged for a long time, and it's such an extreme act. Two acts are considered from the karmic point of view the heaviest. One is suicide, which is the heaviest, because you have not only cut your own life, all who depended upon you for emotions, for your kartavyam, all of it, your evolutionary journey, even if nobody depended. So you have tried to cut all this, it's a grave, all these threads recoil back, and you carry the load, the pain of the parents, the pain of children, the pain of your wife, husband, however much you may fight, you have left them in the lurch. And naturally you go with a very heavy karmic load. Suicide is the worst. Second is murder, killing. So these are regarded as utkat karma, whose impressions can last for 3 to 7 lives. That means in the next life you will have a proclivity towards it. So that's why, as I said, so much has been talked about it in spiritual literature, which people are not. We see on the house suicide bombers and this, that, blowing for what? For killing innocent people. So you are both ways. You are killing yourself and you are killing others. Very, very grievous, and Sri Aurobindo describes this, the world of falsehood in Savitri toward the end. So all this education is not there, unfortunately. So they enter into that state, but again, what about those who die in bombing? And of course, this is a very, because any sudden death, accident, bombing, especially youngsters, you're confused, you come out of the body, you're still there, but the body is not there, and you want to enter, you can't. So during that time, it's a very terrible state, because you are locked in a vital world where all kinds of forces, especially if there is a mass death, so you become like a plasma cloud, because body is an individual shelter. It's your own house. When the house is broken, let's say there is an earthquake, everybody is together on the street. There is no your house. So there is intermingling taking place, which is not a good condition at all. That's why in India you had this custom of, Shraddh. First, when such a death takes place, there are proper occult rites. But even if you don't have that, whatever has happened now, don't get into lamenting and grief, but pray and pray and pray. Surround that, because it's not cut off and departed. There is a time when the soul is still hanging around. So surround it with beautiful music, with beautiful mantras. Create an atmosphere in which the soul may maybe stay for a while, get nourished. And then yes, Shraddh ceremonies and rites were there, basically to help this passage. Even collective ceremonies. See, that's what happened in Corona. People were dying young, dying in fear. And so they were thrown out of their bodies, and even sometimes these ghost phenomena. And they are confused. The vital is confused. And it doesn't create a good atmosphere. In India, that is why we burn. Because when you die, even normal death, these elemental energies are thrown out. So fire destroys them. So giving to fire and with all this mantrochar, all this has a very pacifying effect, because, well, though the person has gone, but the person is not fully gone, because he's still hanging around. So do things which will pacify. Even tell, we are not angry. Whatever you have done, now you go peacefully. Find your destiny. Our love is going with you. Mother has spoken about people meditating together with love and peace. If family members can do it, very good, but they are all in grief. That's why you have to call others who can do this puja part home, but it's not really necessary apart from the occult aspect. So all these are things about after death which modern science is completely ignorant about, because it is based on this idea that matter is the sole reality. But occult science, spiritual science is very much aware of this, because it it had developed ways and means to probe into the afterworlds through yogic vision, through mystic lore, and therefore there are mechanisms and methods. So, state of death is very important. What is the state in which you die?
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Alok. So, anything you want to add more, like for those who commit suicide, or anything you want to add from Indian context?
I would say one sentence, which is from the mother. You want to die, die to your ego. Die to this false identification of yourself with just this little, I am just this body, I am just this vital. This there, it's an instrument. I own a car, I should take care of it. But I am not the car. This thought should go from childhood. That body is important, you need to take care. Vital strength, energy is important. Emotions are important, thought is important. But I am none of these. This is the unique thing about Indian thought. That whether, see, the Western thought would say, I think, therefore I am. Okay. Not all Western thought, but that's how it is. That's why freedom of speech is considered as the highest. We say, I am, therefore I think. So, first thing important is not freedom of speech and freedom of expression, but freedom of the self. And it can come from childhood, these values can come. I have grown up with this, and I'm sure unfortunately it has been lost. Mahabharata, Ramayana, people think it's all superstition, it's all magical, myth. Who said they are myths? Try to understand. So, those values should come back. I'm not saying that maybe on the other side of the globe they have to find their own ways. They can take to these beautiful things from here, the Gita and the Ramayana, and it will be wonderful. But let children grow up with this idea there is something greater and beyond. There are permanent parents. Whom God is a friend. What a gift. I have treated people with depression just with one I remember, magical. 5 years, chronic depression. So somehow it's not that they are panaceas which work with everybody. Somehow I felt like saying this. And I just mentioned, why don't do you have belief in any God or anything? So the 17-year-old girl, she said, I have faith. I said, what God? She said, Krishna I connect. I said, make Krishna your friend. Her life changed. See, people feel alone. Now we have this conception. In the Western world, God is judge sitting out there. He's always serious with a countenance, and he punishes and he rewards, sends you to hell, rewards you to heaven. What is our God? Krishna. Playful, youthful, he even flirts around with you. So lovely. Divine as mother. So this is where we have to, how we orient ourselves to the deeper and higher life, to make them understand that these are not goals, your material success, wealth, ambition, but these are only steps. And not even steps, they are means through which you want to do something else. But goal is not there. That is not goal. That is an acquisition. You have a house. How foolish that it's a goal of life. You may have a house and shelter terrorists. Now, is that something very beautiful? You have a lot of money which you are throwing on, parting into those, what are those boats, something, they go on fancy boats. Cruises. Mm-hmm. You throw money in pornography. Is that called a goal of life? You have money. It's what you do with the money and what you do with the house that's important. That only the spiritual understanding can give. So I think all this is happening to awaken in human beings the need for something higher, something deeper, something truer. That's what we see happening, and it's the task of all of us as healers, as parents, as teachers, as anyone on this planet Earth to awaken humanity to the need of something greater and higher, nobler, truer, more beautiful, which is a journey within, which is so much more important. And if I have to summarize it, who you are is much more important than what you do and what you achieve. or rather I would say the value of what you do and what you achieve derives from who you are. That's what I would say. Okay.
So friends, this was a conversation with Dr. Alok Pandey on topic suicide. Please write your comments and thoughts in comment section if you have any. So we'll try to bring Dr. Alok Pandey again in our second session. Thank you.